It's great to be with everybody. You're very kind to give me that applause even before you heard what I had to say. It's pretty nice. I got to try to keep that up. Hey, listen, I know there are a number of wonderful speakers who are participating. Actually, I didn't ask Ray if she's speaking, but I saw Ray here, and she's one of the great minds in our region when it comes to the economy. And are you speaking? No, I brought my boss. You brought your boss? I don't know him so well, but I know Ray. I know that Chris Donovan, the speaker, is with us, and very much, I know you're all looking forward to hearing him speak. I know Don Williams and John McKinney and Larry Cafaro are also, I believe, scheduled to speak, and certainly I look forward to having a good, strong working relationship with each of them as together we try to develop a climate in Connecticut that will be more supportive of job growth and job retention. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I'm certainly happy to be here as one of my first, actually I guess this is my first appearance before any group with respect to economic development, job creation, job retention, and what we need to do in the state of Connecticut on that front. On the other hand, I'm a little I'm a little naked up here in the sense that we have not filled out all of the jobs that relate to this subject. I continue to spend some time in deliberation in putting together an economic development team. I believe it's vitally important. I believe we need to reorganize our efforts. I believe that we actually need a quarterback for that team, and I'm spending some time, and I will spend time in formulating that team. So I apologize that I can't, turn to my left and introduce everyone who's going to be working at this. On the other hand, I also want to give a very clear message that the person who is speaking to you right now, myself, is going to be intricately involved in the issues that are of great concern to you. It's one of the reasons that I spent a lot of time during the election cycle and in the transition period of time calling upon some of the companies that are represented in this room and sitting down and getting to know folks at the Travelers. Actually, I think it was the first address after winning the election. I went over and spoke to about 400 or 500 of their leaders. I'm more than happy to do that. Sat down with the folks at EB, had a long conversation with the folks at the Hartford, a company that my dad used to sell insurance for. Had a long conversation with the folks at the Aetna, another company my dad used to sell insurance for. I want to assure you that I understand that we need to change the relationship between the companies that are employing so many of our fellow citizens and their state government. As I was coming in here, Mark Davis broke all the rules by having agreed to interview me after I had spoken. He then got me at the elevator and insisted that I speak to him then. Now, Mark is the dean of reporters, we having retired the former dean. And he had the nerve to tell me that he might not be able to stay for my full address. And for fear that he might then not cover me at all, I gave in and answered some of his questions. But in doing so, I learned what some of the prior speakers has said, so I'm actually better prepared than I might have been. So I want to thank you, Mark, for doing that. On the other hand, you won't get away with it too many more times. But one of the things that was related is that it is of great concern to the business community that there be some consistency, that they know what direction we're heading in, that they can have some confidence in our tax policies and in our incentives, that they understand what our goals are and what we're trying to do. In Mark's way, he asked, did I agree? That was a long question, and he said, did I agree? And of course, I do. So the answer is yes, I do agree. We need to be clear. We need to be plain spoken. We need to be supportive. You need to be able to count on us. We need to stop the yearly debate on every subject, and sometimes just put some things aside for a few years. Now, we won't be able to necessarily do all of that overnight. And so this is the difficult part of the message that I've been delivering for a period of time. If you've been subjected to me in the past, I beg your forgiveness if this to some extent reiterates a portion of my inaugural or message to the joint session. I apologize. But what we need to do most immediately is to work through the problems that we are currently presented with. And I want to be very clear. Although I'm not happy with where we are, I understand that we got here with the best of intentions. We had all hoped that this recession would be like every other post-World War II recession. We all hoped that this would not last longer than 18 months and might be as short as 9 months. We all hoped that the spigot would not be cut off in Washington, or many of us did. We all hoped that we'd see a much more robust economic recovery. We certainly all hoped that we wouldn't be down 90,000 jobs as I appear before you, and that's since the recession started. On the other hand, there were signs that this recession was going to be different. I certainly read them in the Stanford marketplace. As early as the second quarter of 2007. By the third quarter of 2007, we could definitely see our financial services industry getting almost on a daily basis in greater levels of distress. When the national economy took a real header in the fourth quarter of 2007, we knew what we perhaps we're in. And then, of course, as things played out the following year with the financial collapse that played out in stages, we were warned and should have read those signs. So where are we today? Well, where we are today is facing something between a $3.5 and a $3.7 billion deficit without any real hope of substantial assistance coming from anyone. There is no cavalry. Except us. Because today we have to begin a new relationship. And I need you to help in that relationship. I cannot cut our way out of this deficit. I cannot eliminate $3.5 to $3.7 billion in expenditures and be the state that we as Connecticut residents aspire to be. I could not do that without disassembling the safety net. I could not do that without disassembling or doing great further damage to our colleges and universities and our pre-K through 12 educational programs. I could not do that and expect that our cities and towns would maintain a reasonable number of firemen, policemen, and teachers. I can't cut this budget by $3.5 to $3.7 billion. And I want to be very clear that if anybody tells you they could do that, and they could do that while meeting your personal aspirations, your children's aspirations, or your grandchildren's aspirations, they simply are not telling you the truth. Because we've basically held the line to some extent over the last couple of years. And we've made some pretty big commitments. And the people in Connecticut want good education. They want safe cities. They want fires to be put out. They want a college and university system that they can depend on to provide the kind of workforce that each and every one of you in this room needs. On the other hand, I want to be very clear, I can't tax my way out of this. The idea that we would raise taxes by $3.5 to $3.7 billion is absolutely ruinous to any hope that we would have to being a job growth state again. I can't do that. I mean, I understand that we're going to have to look at everything, and I want to do that with an eye towards stability. So we want to get it done between now and February 16th when we send the legislature a budget. And we certainly want to get it done as quickly after that so everybody knows what we have to spend and everybody knows what we have to raise and everybody knows what we are cutting. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do it without gimmicks. I'm going to do it asking sacrifice. I'm going to do it convincing, I hope, people that there is shared sacrifice in this, that some people will lose services or things that they would like to have, and some people will be required in some way to sacrifice in another way on the revenue side. But what we've got to do is we've got to get to a point where our state stands on its own 2 feet, establishes what its means are, and then lives within those means, and then can reasonably predict that it's going to live within those means in the future, and by the way, then reports everything according to GAAP. And that's what we're going to do, and that's what this administration is going to be about every single day that we're in office. So it begins there. It doesn't end there. I'm not foolish. I know that there are lots of other issues that are confronting us. I mean, you know, if you have the highest electric rates in the nation, right, don't be surprised that you lose manufacturers, because one of the greatest commodities that they're purchasing is electricity. If you have a transportation system which is as badly broken as our transportation system is, particularly in the southwestern portion of the state, it's actually spread. I mean, this system is entirely, well, I shouldn't say, at certain times, this system is dysfunctional from the Greenwich border through New Haven. And one of the things that having an experience of having run for governor twice that I can honestly say is there's now a much broader recognition that what goes on in Fairfield County and in New Haven County actually does have real impact in the rest of the state. So I don't have to spend a lot of time convincing people why we have to rectify some of those problems, but we have to rectify those problems. It's one of the reasons that we've got to stop borrowing money to pay for operating expenses so that we can appropriately borrow money to invest in our state. There is a difference between an expenditure and an investment. And we need to invest in transportation and in education and other infrastructure in this state again. Now, if I had been governor back in 2007 or 8 or 9, we would have continued the process of appropriately investing in our infrastructure. But we didn't do that, and I wasn't here. But what we intend to do on February 16th is present you a budget that begins the process of reinvesting in our state. Transportation certainly is one of those arenas. Another area that we're going to take on is this looking at our college and university system to make sure that they are more agile, that they can move substantially more quickly, that they can evolve into offering majors and degrees much more rapidly. You know, the idea that it would take 18 months to approve new majors at universities and colleges in this state addressing homeland security, when after all we really needed to do was to go to the state universities and colleges in other states and copy their curriculum, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I want our private colleges and universities to be substantially more agile. I want higher education, our department, to get out of the way and to be an appropriate partner. And in part doing that, we need to come up with a new structure, and we are working on that. I also think that this is a time of opportunity for the University of Connecticut. No, I'm not talking about a new football coach, but I am talking about a new quarterback there as well. I've met the incoming president. I think that she's going to be, I hope and pray, but I also believe that she's going to be a great leader of that institution. I want to push that institution to take a more broad view of its role and its interactions with the state of Connecticut. I want to see it play a larger role in not just reporting economic development in the state, but participating in economic development state, doing the analysis again necessary to formulate good and strong and appropriate policies for the state of Connecticut, reporting on the implications of tax policy or energy policy again in our state. So I'm looking forward to building that kind of economic development teamwork between my administration and that of the University of Connecticut in the very near future, and certainly as soon as the new administration is inaugurated. A few other things that I want to get to. So I don't want to spend all my time talking about all of the problems. So what do we need to do? Well, we're going to attack this issue of energy costs. We're going to attack this issue of lack of infrastructure investment. We're going to put our economic house in order by establishing our means and then living within them. We're going to try to give you a system of taxation and expenditures that you can rely on. And then finally, we need to turn our attention to regulation. I need to hear from your leaders, from you, on what you think needs to be changed. Now, by the way, I want to remind you, I know you all know this, I'm a Democrat. Donovan, once in a while, he's not so sure, but I'm a Democrat. And I believe in appropriate regulation. I really do. And I think actually our debacle of a national economy is reflective, in part it's cyclical, in part an overreaction in those cycles because we had failed to appropriately regulate or live with the regulations that we had in the books. So I believe in regulation, but I also believe that Connecticut doesn't speak with a very clear voice, doesn't send a good message. You sitting here don't understand that we're actually trying to have regulation that protects people and interest and markets without impeding business. So we really have to attack that particular issue. And I have to admit to you that this is not an area where I have particularly great expertise. And so it's one of the areas that I'm going to be reaching out to all of you folks and to others to tackle. You know, I see some of the healthcare companies in the room. You know, we're going to take a very serious look at our regulations with respect to hospitals and whether we're adding additional cost. Our regulation of the banking or insurance industries, or whether we're playing the appropriate role with respect to safety of the workplace, or every other type of regulation that we have. I want good regulation that makes sense, that you can count on, that does its job without preventing us from creating jobs. And so that too will be a focus of our administration as we move forward. Now, we're not always going to agree. I mean, that's a simple truth. We're going to have disagreements. I hope you agree that we should establish our means and live within them. I hope you agree that we can't cut our ways out of this and we can't tax our ways out of this. I hope you agree we need to start making appropriate infrastructure investments. I hope you agree that we need to protect education in this state, K through 12 and higher education. I hope you agree that we're going to be more agile. I hope you agree and have some ideas on what we could do to cut energy costs. I hope you agree on all of those things. But on some of these issues, we're not going to agree. We're going to have disagreements. We don't have to be disagreeable about it. I have to have one position with respect to paid sick days, for instance. And I'll just take it on. I happen to believe that people work. Are you having lunch here today? Boy, it's getting pretty cheap around here, isn't it? They make you sit and listen to me, and then they don't give you lunch. That's. But, you know, if you were having lunch, or whoever put the coffee or the crumpets out there earlier today, I hope none of them were sick and came to work today because they feared that if they didn't, they would lose their job. Some of you have children that you dropped off at daycare today. I hope none of your children were dropped off at a daycare center where people came to work with the flu or with a cold or some other malady because they feared that they would lose their job if they didn't show up today. So we're going to have disagreements. Now, having said that, within that particular support that I have for paid sick days, there's reasons to talk about that. You know, what is reasonable? Was the 90 days that was in the minimum employment before an hour would kick in of paid sick leave, was that reasonable? Or did it not, was it not long enough to exclude a seasonal college or high school employment? I think that's a reasonable discussion to have. Was 520 hours a reasonable period of time to be required to complete working before you earned 1 hour of paid sick time? I think that's a reasonable discussion to have. I'm more than willing to have that with you in the legislature. And I'm willing to have lots of conversations and lots of discussions because, as of today, the governor's office is open for business and Connecticut is open for business. And the new day has come, and we're going to take these issues on. We're going to agree when we agree. We're going to disagree appropriately when we disagree, but we're always going to be working together to make Connecticut more business-friendly, more competitive, and to be a state that, once again, can reasonably project that it could create jobs in the not-too-distant future. That's why I'm here today. That's why I accepted your invitation. That's why I'm willing to take a few questions. Thank you very much.